The invitation arrived at the Vance residence in Washington, D.C., with the kind of calculated politeness that masked the true intent behind it. Mrs. Vance, we would be honored to have you as a guest on the Progressive Hour this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to discuss pressing national issues. We look forward to your insights and perspectives. Usha Vance, an accomplished attorney and the wife of Vice President J.D. Vance, read the email with a knowing smile. The show, hosted by Rachel Ellison, was notorious for its aggressive questioning of conservative figures. It wasn't an invitation, it was a challenge. She turned to her husband, who sat across the room flipping through policy briefings. They want me on the Progressive Hour. What do you think? J.D. looked up, one eyebrow raised. Ellison? She's ruthless. Are you sure you want to do that? Usha smirked. They think I'm an easy target. They assume I won't fight back. She tapped the screen of her phone. But I'm not going to play defense. J.D. chuckled. I pity Ellison already. With that, Usha confirmed her attendance, setting into motion a night that America wouldn't soon forget. Wednesday night arrived and millions of Americans tuned in. Some were eager to see a member of the Vance family struggle under Ellison's questioning. Others, well aware of Usha's intellect, hoped for fireworks. Usha stepped onto the set with confidence, dressed in a sleek navy blue blazer, exuding calm professionalism. The moment she took her seat, she sensed the trap being laid. Ellison's smile was wide, but her eyes gleamed with anticipation. Mrs. Vance, Ellison began smoothly, thank you for being here tonight. As the wife of the vice president, you hold a unique position of influence. But let's be honest, many see your role as merely a supportive spouse. Some wonder if you truly have any independent views at all. Usha tilted her head slightly, the smallest of smiles forming at the corner of her lips. Rachel, that's an interesting way to start an interview. Are you suggesting that women, especially women of color, cannot think for themselves? Ellison's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. No, of course not. But as the wife of a conservative leader, some might argue that your views are shaped entirely by his policies. Usha leaned forward slightly. Let's talk about shaping views. You've been a liberal media figure for over a decade. Does that mean your opinions are entirely dictated by the progressive establishment, or do you think for yourself? The audience let out a murmur. Ellison recovered quickly. Well, I base my opinions on facts, Mrs. Vance. Speaking of which, let's address some facts. Your husband, Vice President Vance, has supported policies that critics say are harmful to minority communities. How do you defend that? Usha's expression didn't change. Let's be precise. Which policies are you referring to, and can you provide data to support your claim that they are harmful? Ellison hesitated. She was used to flustering guests, not being put on the spot herself. Well, she began, for instance, his stance on education reform. Ah, Usha interrupted. So we're talking about school choice initiatives, which actually give low-income families, particularly minorities, more control over their children's education. Are you saying minority parents shouldn't have options? Ellison's mouth opened slightly, then shut again. The energy in the room shifted. The so-called easy target had turned the tables, and the night was just getting started. Rachel Ellison shifted in her chair, forcing a smile that no longer seemed as effortless as before. She had expected Usha Vance to be composed, but she hadn't anticipated this level of sharpness. Usha wasn't just answering questions. She was questioning the very premise behind them. Ellison cleared her throat. Mrs. Vance, let's not sidestep the real issue. Your husband's policies on immigration have drawn harsh criticism. Many see them as exclusionary, even xenophobic. Given your background, being the daughter of Indian immigrants, how do you reconcile your personal history with his policies? A lesser guest might have faltered at this moment, but Usha smiled, her eyes locked onto Ellison's. Rachel, I find it interesting that you frame immigration in such simplistic terms. My parents immigrated legally through a system that was designed to ensure fairness and opportunity for all. Isn't it reasonable to expect that America should uphold the same principles today? Ellison leaned forward. But don't you think your husband's approach lacks compassion? Compassion. Usha's voice was calm, but her words cut with precision. Rachel, tell me, how compassionate is it when low-income American workers, many of whom are minorities, lose job opportunities because of unchecked illegal immigration? How compassionate is it when drug cartels exploit weak border policies, bringing fentanyl into our communities, killing thousands? You say my husband's policies are exclusionary, but I ask you, Who are you excluding from this conversation? The struggling American families? The victims of crime? The children who lose their parents to overdoses? Ellison opened her mouth, but no words came. Usha continued, her voice steady. It's easy to use buzzwords like xenophobic when discussing immigration. But here's a fact for you. The majority of legal immigrants, people like my parents, support border security. They follow the rules. Why should others be allowed to break them? The studio audience, usually in lockstep agreement with Ellison, was silent. Some were even nodding. Ellison inhaled deeply. She needed to regain control. Mrs. Vance, let's move to another topic. Your husband has been accused of promoting policies that set back women's rights. Do you, as a woman, feel that the current administration is doing enough for gender equality? Usha raised an eyebrow. Define setback women's rights. Ellison blinked. Well, for example, reproductive rights. You mean abortion? Usha interjected. Ellison hesitated. Yes. Many argue that restricting abortion access is an attack on women's rights. Usha tilted her head. Let's discuss rights, then. You argue that limiting abortion is an attack on women. But what about the millions of unborn baby girls who are aborted every year? Do they have rights? Or do we only discuss women's rights when it fits a certain narrative? Ellison looked momentarily stunned. I believe in protecting all women. Usha continued. The born and the unborn. And I also believe that we need to have an honest conversation about why so many women feel abortion is their only option. Why aren't we talking about expanding support for mothers, improving adoption services, or holding absent fathers accountable? If we really care about women, shouldn't we be addressing the root causes? Rather than promoting abortion as the only solution, Ellison's lips pressed into a thin line. The debate was not going as she had planned, and the most shocking moment was still to come. Rachel Ellison was now visibly tense. The interview that was supposed to be a public embarrassment for Ushians had become something else entirely. The audience was no longer reacting with the usual cheers and applause for progressive talking points. Instead, there was a weight in the air, a growing realization that Usha wasn't just holding her own. She was winning. But Ellison wasn't ready to give up. She took a deep breath and leaned forward. Mrs. Vance, she said, her voice measured. Let's address the elephant in the room. Your husband, Vice President J. D. Vance, has been called dangerous by many progressives. Some say he is a threat to democracy itself. As his wife, do you ever worry about being associated with such extreme views? Usha didn't even blink. Rachel, let me ask you something. When did it become extreme to believe in the Constitution? When did it become dangerous to fight for the rights of working-class Americans, to secure the border, to protect free speech? My husband swore an oath to uphold the laws of this country. What exactly do you find dangerous about that? Ellison's expression tightened. Many believe that the Vance administration has emboldened far-right extremists. Usha shook her head slightly. That's the narrative your network pushes, isn't it? Let me tell you what's actually extreme. Encouraging political violence when you don't get your way. Censoring opposing viewpoints. Treating American citizens like second-class people if they don't align with the mainstream media's agenda. That's what Americans are tired of. They see through the spin. Rachel Ellison was losing ground fast, and she knew it. But she had one last card to play. Mrs. Vance, she said, her voice lowering as if preparing for a dramatic moment. You are a woman of color married to a white conservative politician. Many on the left say that people like you are being used as a shield to push harmful policies. How do you respond to that? For the first time in the interview, Usha let out a quiet laugh, not out of nervousness, but out of sheer disbelief. Rachel, do you hear yourself? You're suggesting that I'm incapable of thinking for myself. That because I'm an Indian American woman, I must align with a particular ideology. That's not progressive. That's racist. The audience gasped. Even Ellison looked stunned. Usha leaned in, her tone unwavering. Let me be clear. I am not a puppet. I am an educated, accomplished woman. I have my own thoughts, my own beliefs, and I stand by them. The idea that women of color must all think the same way is not only insulting, it's oppressive. You talk about fighting for diversity, yet the moment someone like me refuses to conform, I'm labeled a shield or a sellout. That's not inclusion, Rachel. That's intolerance. Ellison sat motionless, speechless for the first time in her career. The silence in the studio was deafening. And then something unexpected happened. A slow clap. One person in the audience started, then another, and before anyone could stop it, the entire studio was applauding, even some of the staff behind the cameras. Ellison's face turned red. This was not the outcome she had anticipated. But the American people had spoken, and Usha Vance had just changed the game. The applause in the studio was unlike anything Rachel Ellison had ever experienced on the Progressive Hour. It wasn't just polite, it was genuine. Some audience members stood, others exchanged glances, as if realizing, perhaps for the first time, that the narrative they had always accepted wasn't as solid as they had believed. Ellison forced a tight smile, but her discomfort was evident. She shuffled the papers in front of her, trying to regain her composure. Well, Mrs. Vance, this has certainly been a lively discussion. Usha, unbothered and composed, simply smiled. Discussions should be. That's how we grow as a country, isn't it? Ellison barely acknowledged the response. We're out of time, but I appreciate you coming on tonight. Usha extended her hand, a subtle yet powerful statement of grace and strength. For a moment, Ellison hesitated. Then, with cameras rolling and no escape, she shook it. The moment was immortalized in an instant. The interview spread like wildfire. Within minutes, social media exploded. #UshDominates trended on X, formerly Twitter, with millions of posts dissecting the interview. Clips of Usha's most powerful moments, her takedown of the immigration argument, her sharp critique of media bias, and her stunning rejection of racial identity politics, circulated at lightning speed. Conservative commentators hailed her as the new Iron Lady of America, while even some moderates and liberals admitted that she had humiliated Ellison. One post went viral. They invited Usha Vance thinking she'd be an easy target. Instead, she dismantled their entire playbook in under 30 minutes. On cable news, conservative hosts played highlights of the interview on repeat. Even traditionally liberal networks couldn't ignore the moment. Some tried to downplay it, but the sheer public reaction made it impossible to bury. Podcasters, influencers, and political analysts debated the significance of the moment. Was this the turning point in media bias? Had the Democratic establishment underestimated women like Usha Vance for too long? At the vice president's residence, J.D., Vance sat in his office watching the footage. He smiled, shaking his head in admiration. A knock on the door. Usha walked in, her phone still buzzing with notifications. Well, that was interesting. J.D. laughed. Interesting? You just broke the internet. She rolled her eyes playfully. I just told the truth. He walked over, placing a hand on her shoulder. And that's exactly why it was so powerful. They weren't ready for you. A moment of silence passed between them before he added. After this, people are going to start asking if you're planning to run for office yourself. Usha chuckled, shaking her head. One political figure in this house is enough. J.D. grinned. We'll see about that. In the days that followed, the impact of the interview continued to grow. Liberal commentators scrambled to frame the narrative, but the damage was done. People, especially women and minorities, began questioning the assumptions they had been fed for years. Conservative groups rallied around Usha, seeing her as a fresh voice who could reach demographics the right had struggled with for decades. Even some independents, previously skeptical of the Vance administration, admitted that Usha had made them think differently. For the media, the lesson was clear. The old tactics weren't working anymore. Americans were tired of being talked down to, tired of the manufactured narratives, tired of the idea that certain voices didn't belong in certain spaces. And Usha Vance, the soft-spoken yet razor-sharp attorney, had just shattered that illusion on live television for the entire nation to see. The game had changed, and America would never be the